please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. That was a really interesting presentation, Richard and Gemma. So it's really interesting to hear sort of your paths, and I've definitely resonated with some of the points that you've raised of why you joined Esri UK. Um, but I'm Liz, and I am here to talk to you today about my journey in joining Esri UK as Data Curator. So a little bit about me. I graduated last year in July 2020 and I studied BSc Geography at the University of Manchester. Graduated, I say in quotation marks, as I've actually not had my physical ceremony as of yet, but hopefully that will come next year. But I joined Esri UK this year in April as a data curator in the content services team. And this is me in the far right here. And this is actually the wider content team during a picture taken during our first away day. And the content team is basically in charge of providing content for our customers. And as data curator, I look after a product called ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World. And what I wanted to highlight was this time last year, I was in your shoes. I was also an attendee at Esri UK's Early Careers webinar. So I'm really keen to meet and talk to you today to discuss about why I chose Esri UK and why I chose to apply for a position here. So first things first, what is a data curator? Well, the job is as cool as the name sounds. If you imagine a museum or art curator, but instead of curating paintings or artifacts, you work with geospatial data. So I'm essentially responsible for the growth of ArcGIS Living Atlas in the UK. And if you're not familiar with Living Atlas, it's essentially a collection of geographic content in ArcGIS, and it's made up of data from Esri, our partners, and the global GIS community. And just to take you in a bit of a detour, this is the Living Atlas website, and you can browse content on this website. And just as you can see here, we have currently over 10,000 items in Living Atlas in the moment. And these data sets fall under different categories such as environment data, people data, and imagery data. If you haven't done so already, please do check it out as it's accessible if you have an ArcGIS Online named user subscription. And if you're a student at university, most universities, I believe, allow this access. Just double check with your department. So each item in Living Atlas that you can see here has been curated by a data curator. And that's just to ensure that the items are authoritative and ready to use to support the work for our customers. And as in the data curator for Esri UK, I'm responsible for reviewing and curating our UK Living Atlas nominations. So I also help support our customers share their data to the website, and I also identify new data contributors for the UK. But part of my role is also to promote the use of Living Atlas. And similar to what Gemma said, I've also been writing blogs and social media posts to market Living Atlas and attending conferences and webinars like today to highlight Living Atlas. But that's enough of Living Atlas. In terms of why it's important for Esri UK, well, I can define it, give two reasons for that. So first is the value it provides to our customers, and the second is the value it provides to the wider business. This is actually the first time the data curator role was made a permanent role. Beforehand, it was a graduate rotation within the graduate scheme, and this just goes to show that Esri is really focusing on ensuring that we provide the best content for our customers. So in terms of the value it provides to our customers, the Living Atlas has transformed traditional GIS workflows. So instead of people sourcing and maintaining the data for their projects or their research, the data curator essentially does this for you. So this has not only saved time and effort, but it's also helped jumpstart projects and facilitate collaboration through the sharing of data within the GIS community. It also brings value to the wider business. So I'm the subject matter expert of content in Living Atlas, and I work closely with the pre-sales team, who Richard and Gemma mentioned in their presentation. They try to sell a software to the customers, and also the professional services team who work with the customers solve their business problems. So I work with them to guide them towards the relevant content that they can use to show in customer demos, or to help customers solve their problems and show the capabilities of our software. We also have a Media Maps team, which was mentioned earlier, and I work with them by letting them know any new content that would be suitable for a Media Maps project that would then help promote Esri UK and our data. So this GIF that you can see here, fun fact, is actually made by, I can't remember who it was, but it was definitely someone in the content team, and this uses COVID-19 data from Living Atlas. And I believe we posted it on Reddit and it had lots of hits. So just goes to show that Living Atlas data is really valuable and is proving to be really popular amongst our users. So I mentioned earlier that this time last year I was in your position. So why did I actually choose to apply for Esri UK? Throughout my university career, I was fortunate enough that I used ArcGIS throughout my 3 years. So I knew the name Esri and I knew that they were the leading supplier of GIS and that they're very big in their field. So that definitely drew me to applying. But after attending the careers webinar, I was really hooked at the culture of Esri UK. With the previous presentation, it really highlighted we're very focused on customer, you know, our customers and helping them solve their problems using GIS. So that's something I wanted to do in my career, help GIS for the greater good, really. And what was also clear was the opportunities for development and growth within Esri UK. So whether that's through training courses or just the opportunity to work in a different team and different projects, that was something that really drew me to applying. Um, but going back to this concept of greater good, for me, I feel really lucky that I'm part of a company that's using their assets and technology to help solve some of the real world challenges that we face today. So things like climate change, land use planning, and conservation. So just as an example of this, during COVID, Esri UK released a map of pavement widths in Great Britain, and they did that as part of the COVID-19 disaster response programme to help local governments with social distancing measures. And even more recently, the education team have been working with the Met Office creating education resources to help students understand the impact of climate change in the UK. And if you haven't done so already, I also encourage you to check that out because it's really a worthwhile read. So in terms of my experience when I was joining, I went through a two-stage recruitment process. So the first was a telephone interview, and that's when they asked me about my knowledge of Esri. We touched on a few technical stuff and things I did at university. And the second stage was a Microsoft Teams interview. And at this stage, I was presented with a situation where I had to come up with a demo for a customer. So um, it's definitely a lot more technical than the first one, and it tested my GIS technical knowledge. But we also touched on competency-based questions, so things like my skills and experience at university. In terms of how I feel about starting a permanent role and making it my own, I actually really enjoyed it. The fact that it was a permanent role for the first time meant I had opportunity to set an example and set a precedent and really make a difference to the company and the customers who use our data. And the variety of tasks that I've mentioned that go in hand with my role keeps it interesting for me. But what I wanted to highlight is that despite not going down the graduate scheme route, I've still had several opportunities to work across different teams and get involved with different projects. And that just goes to show that Esri UK really care about your professional development. For me, presenting about GIS and showcasing our products is something that I wanted to do. And I'm only 6 months in, and I've already been offered the chance to speak at some of the big conferences we have, like the Scottish and Welsh conference. And that just highlights that, if you're interested in something, and, you ask and you express, something that you want to do in terms of your professional development or something that you're passionate about, then almost always Esri UK will accommodate this. And I can't really stress enough, the first thing I noticed was how friendly everyone was. When I joined, if I had a question, and I'm the sort of person that's not afraid to ask a question and that might get annoying sometimes for some people, but there's always someone willing to help. And as Gemma highlighted, not only are you supported by your line manager and your wider team, you're also supported with other departments, and the buddy system that was implemented, I felt really helped me settle in, as it's someone I could ask questions to, and someone I had a bit more of an informal relationship with if I didn't feel comfortable, talking to my line manager about it, for example. So I think these resources will be passed around after the webinar, but I've put my LinkedIn profile here if you'd like to connect with me. And if you'd also like to find out more about Living Atlas, then I've embedded some resources at the bottom here that you can check out in your own time as well.